All right, so two cameras we're going to start off this morning with is the Wirgin stereo camera modified to panoramic and my Widelux F7. Quick note on the Widelux F7, you always want to massage the shutter on these cameras. Every couple of rolls, it's really a good idea. So what you do is fire the shutter off, and then when the shutter's not cocked, just put your fingers in the opening like that and pull it back and forth, just like that, a half dozen times. And then what I like to do is cock the shutter again, go to a different shutter speed, fire it, and then massage that shutter speed. And then once again, cock the shutter, change the shutter speed again. You always want to change the shutter speeds on the Widelux, at any Widelux, with the shutter cocked. I have a whole video on the Widelux F7. It's one of the very first videos I ever did here, if you're curious about the camera. Okay, that's all you have to do. But by doing that, you're making sure the lubricants and everything and the springs and all that are going to be proper. Now, in order to load the film, you remove the back, and it's kind of a nightmare. It's a weird film path. So I've got my roll of Ferrania P33, and you lift up on this, put it in, make sure it locks, and then it goes, I usually pull out about that much. It goes up underneath the first roller, across the drum, underneath this little dark slot right here, and it comes out right here. And then what I like to do is I roll this until I get the slot like that. This then pushes into there, and then you advance the film like that until it stops. Take a picture, and I can already see that it's properly lined up now. So I'll take the back, put it back on, and then advance it, shoot it, advance it, and we're on frame number 1. So that's one camera. The next camera, the Wirgin stereo camera by my friend Dirk, the back opens up like this. It's just a massive, massive negative. I mean, it makes the Widelux look small. All right, I open this up. Once again, just like in the Wirgin, you pull up here, drop the cassette in, and then I pull it across. And over here, I want to get this set so the line here is on top. I put my leader in there. Oh, that'll kink. I might bend it a little bit like that to help hold it in place. There we go. That should be good. All right, that is good. Now, when I close the camera, I advance the film 7 times, and that puts me on the first frame. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can see the cassette moving over here, which is good. I can see if you watch when I advance, that means the film is moving 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll go one more for good measure. So that's all set. So this should have 18 or 19 frames. This is going to max at, I think it's 21, and let's go shoot. Here. With the sun, you know?
Okay.
On the trail. All right, so the first shot we're going to be shooting sort of into the sun, lots of contrast, should be really beautiful with this film. I've done a light meter reading, it's f11. So as I set the camera to f11 at a 1/25th, and that's based upon an exposure index of 200. Based upon popular demand, we're going to process all the film in. Of course, the advantage being it's going to give us a speed bump. So Eve, why don't you pan this way, and you can see what we're going to be shooting. I'm going to have Eve stand out on this trail here. High contrast, great shadows, should be really beautiful. All right, our next shot is this complicated one right here, where you've got shadows and highlights. It's early morning contrast. I just metered once again for ISO 200, and it is a 60th of a second at f11. So let's take that shot. I'm gonna have Eve stand out in the light out there, just so we get a real sense of the contrast. All right, so in here, I'm gonna photograph this dark sort of landscape you see in here. These really beautiful trees, nice backlight, lots of contrast. The exposure is basically f8 at a 60th, once again at exposure index of 200. All right. I'll shoot one more of those. Being conscious of the flare a little bit, but I love flare, so. All right, so f8 at a 60th would be f5.6 at a 125th on this camera, because once again, it only has 3 shutter speeds. But I can also get a little closer, like right about here. And because we have a lot of exposure latitude, I need a couple where I'm going a stop under what the metered exposure is. Because if you remember, we were good at 200. We're also good at 320. And I'm thinking I can milk that extra latitude for a shot like this. All right, let's move on to the next shot. Okay, so my next 3 cameras are the Alfie, my M3, and the Hologon Ultrawide. The M3, as promised, will have a 135 lens on it that I use for portraits. Let me see. I'm gonna want the hood. It's nice that the hood is interchangeable between these 2 lenses. And then, because I'm running low on film, I'm being strategic in how I'm going to do this. This particular roll of film has more room than this roll does. So what I'm going to do is load the film in the M3 first. I think I cut this the wrong way. Did I? No. Okay, we get the M3 loaded up here. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kink this real hard so I know right where the film started. I'm not gonna do much of an advance because I need to be judicious with this film. Okay, and what we're gonna do, let me see, 1, Okay, so that is all set. And then after I shoot 3 or 4 frames in this camera, I'll rewind the film, saving the leader, and then load it in this camera, leave the lens cap on and advance it like 8 frames, and then finish the rest on that. This roll here is definitely short. I'm hoping I have, but that's why I'm putting it on the half frame camera, knowing that that'll be perfect. And I need to make myself a starter. That'll work. And pop that in here. Never have enough film when I do tests. So I'll pull that across a little. Okay, that should be good. Close the door. Turn the camera on. And my battery's dead. I have to charge the camera real fast. All right, so what I've done is a portrait of my beautiful wife, Eve, and that's the only shot that I'm gonna do with the M3 with the 135, because it's looking at a portrait. She was backlit with really beautiful rim lighting. It's gonna be gorgeous. So now what I'm gonna do is I shot 7 frames on that particular portrait. So I'm gonna rewind the film, and I'm rewinding till I feel the film release. There it is. You wanna be careful. After you feel the release, you wanna stop. And then I'm gonna open the back. Notice how I have my back turned to the light. That's perfect. Okay, a little tight in there, come on. There we go. So I've got my film, and you notice how it still has the leader, and that's the bend mark where I know how to line it back up with the Hologon. And as I said, I'll advance like, I don't know, 10 frames, and that should be perfect. So the Hologon, in my pocket. I'm going to leave the lens cap on, remove, it's kind of a pain, the back. All right, I'm going to load this film in, pull it across, try to be as precise as I can here. There we go. Put the back on. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the camera on a 500th of a second with the lens cap on. And I'm going to 1, 2, 3. Okay, that got us probably to the beginning of the film. And then I'm going to set my counter to re-zero it. And now I'm going to advance at 10 frames. 1, 2, 9. I'm good. All right, so of course, the aspect ratio of my Hologon Ultrawide, 24 by 36 standard 35mm frame, is very different than the Widelux and the Wirgin Pano. So for this particular shot that we did here, I shot 1 frame. I had to get a lot closer. This is a way wider lens. And then I did an alternative view, which I think is better, and I think it'll showcase what this particular camera film developer combination can do. So we got 1 more shot, then we're gonna go back and grab the Alfie and finish up those frames. All right, so because this Hologon lens is so wide, I'm able to get underneath the tree, and it's creating the sense of the branches coming over me. So I've got the meter all set. Let's do a shot or two. And I may even do one here where I play with looking back a little bit, because that'll create this looming sense of the branches coming over me. But you got to be careful, because a little bit goes a long ways. And that got a little bit of sun coming in, so it might create a really beautiful flare, which I love. Shoot one more frame and that'll be it. Done. And now we'll go grab the Alfie and shoot the last frames. Have I mentioned that I have the greatest wife on the planet who's filming all this with me today? Thank you, Eve. So now we're going to work with the Alfie camera. If you remember, it has 4 different imaging options. You've got a meniscus lens, a complex lens, a pinhole, and a zone plate. So what I'm going to do is 4 half-frame verticals here, and then I'm going to do an overlapping frame at the meniscus lens, because that's something this camera does so well. All right, so my final thoughts on the new Ferrania P33. First off, all 3 films offered by Ferrania, the P30, the Orto, and now the P33, are really a family of film. They are much more related than they are not. The biggest differences between the 3 films really boil down to 2 things. 1, spectral sensitivity, and 2, film speed. And the film speed is definitely affected by the spectral sensitivity. When Ferrania brought out P30, in my initial reviews that I did, I talked about how P30 had a panchromatic and an orthochromatic quality, which I personally really love. And what's interesting is when they took out the panchromatic quality and brought out ortho film, which is a true orthochromatic film, it lost some speed. And on P33, when they took out the slight orthochromatic quality of P30, it gained a little bit of speed. And that's my point, is that these 3 films are really built on a philosophy that Ferrania has of what they want their film to look like. They are definitely a family of film. Is it my favorite film I've ever used? No. Would I use it again? Maybe, maybe not. I actually prefer P30 still as my favorite of the 3. And the reason for that is P30, in my opinion, is the most opinionated of the 3 films. This particular film, I think it's really nice. I think it's beautiful. And I love to celebrate here in 2024 that we have a new emulsion on the market. But is it better than, say, Fomapan 100? No. And Fomapan 100 is cheaper. And I think Fomapan 100 has a bigger exposure latitude. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, it's one of the best films for the buck that you can buy. However, there are going to be people that like this particular film better, and that's totally fine. Is it better than 5222 by Eastman Kodak? No, it's not. I think it's different, and that's what I hope all the sample images that I provided showed. You know, the way it handled the flare with the developer film combinations, you know, the unique look that you got with the Alfie, the absolute gorgeous classic quality of the portrait that I did of my wife Eve, the super cool, you know, wide angle panoramics. I was really in those pieces trying to give you a sense of how this particular material would look under a variety of different lighting situations and in a variety of different cameras. Thank you so much for going along with me on this multi-day journey here, looking at this new film offering by Ferrania. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Now go shoot some film.